this panel. Who knew? We had no idea what this was going to turn out to be. And not only that, but actually we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so I want to try something before we move to the questions and answers. Two things. First, I want to introduce Sheila Mabry, a member of our board. Very, very instrumental in helping us understand what people really need to hear in terms of being prepared for the exam. Sheila's worked with so many people in her work as a clinician, as a supervisor, program director, with people who've struggled with this. So she's seen time and again what the barriers are and what's needed for people to be able to pass. Because we have so many people, we've had so many people on the panel, we were concerned about having additional people on the panel who we would have liked. Since we're running a few minutes ahead, I want to do one thing. First of all, on everybody's share was this packet of information, resources, and one of the items was written by our staff member, Amu Kowalik, who took the exam fairly recently, and she wrote up the 10 things that she learned from the experience to share. And it's been very well received on our blog. A lot of people have responded to this, and you all have that. How I passed the New York State LMSW exam after 4 years of putting it off. I just wanted to call that to your attention. But what I want to do right now, just for a few more minutes, I want to ask Dawn Paul Apgar to come up. We would have liked her to have been on the panel to begin with, and just share with you what she has in this packet on the self-assessment tool for diagnosing difficulties in passing the exam. So Dawn, why don't you come up and take about 5 minutes or 6 minutes, and then we're going to move on to the program.
God gives you 5 minutes to talk about something that you've dedicated almost your entire career to. It's a daunting task, but I just want to thank you for being part of this program. You'll see in your packet that I put this together a couple years ago, which is a self-assessment. And what I would say to you is, and I think one of the panelists said, there isn't necessarily a silver bullet here. You know, there's 400 of you in the room, there's probably 400 different ways to approach the test. I think what's critical is you need to think about what's best for you. And one of the panelists talked a little bit about kind of the 3 areas. And anxiety is certainly, I think Bob opened up with that, is certainly a huge area of concern. I will tell you, you're never ready for the exam. You know, it's one of those things that you just have to pick a date. You have to develop a plan, which I think is critical, and draw comfort by the fact that you've done your best. So you need to, and sometimes the date is set by your own studying, and sometimes it's set by something external like your job or some other external pressure. For me personally, the environment is really important. So when I speak to really large groups. I like to see where I'm going to talk. And for you, if the environment is, if you're like me, go to the testing site. Go find out where it is. Some of you came early. Get there early. Those are all great strategies. The other thing is sometimes I have people who bring their partners, with them on the day of the exam. The person sits there. I tend to be one of those, and I've said this before, one of those people who tells no one that I'm taking the exam. I get dressed, ready for work. I don't tell my boss why I took the day off. I don't want any kind of external pressure. You just have to know who you are, but you do need to, control your anxiety. The other thing is, stamina is a really difficult thing, and that can also feed your anxiety. I have a lot of people who kind of lose control of the exam when they're in there, because it's difficult, right? They're anxious because sometimes you're never quite sure you have the right answer, right? You're picking, between several answers, and I really liked the suggestion of practice study the way that you take the exam. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of 4 hours, right, getting fatigued and, feeling bad. So when you're studying in 4-hour blocks is a great suggestion. The other 2 areas have to do with knowledge. There's a lot of materials out there. What I would say to you is the KSAs is a great way of studying. ASWB basically tells you, and you can download them for free on the website, tells you what areas are on the exam. So you need to know, if you only know a third of the areas going in, you're going to have an issue. You need to look at those and be familiar with those. I didn't like my textbooks when I got them, so studying off textbooks is a little bit rough for me personally, but you're right, Larson, there's some classics out there, and there's also a lot of other free materials on the web which people talked about. The other thing is just problem solving, and I think that's really what a lot of the panelists talked about in the sense that it's not a memorization exam. You have to, in each question, they're testing you on a piece of information. So the vignettes are not about what you'll do in your agency. As a matter of fact, you might do something completely different. But what you have to, I always say to myself after the question, what is this question about? And what I mean by that is not necessarily what I would do in my practice setting, but what piece of information, what piece of knowledge are they testing me about? Even though, don't be tricked by the fact that it's couched in a vignette. It's all testing a piece of knowledge. So it's hard because sometimes, it's rare that you'll say, well, if I had really just studied this, page 118 of this book, or if I had just looked at this flashcard, or it's really putting it all together. So that problem solving, I think, can be different. So sometimes what I say to people is, when you're answering a question, what you might say, well, this is what I would do in my agency, but it's not should, right? It's not what's out there. They're asking you in this particular ideal world, right? Not, maybe not what would happen, not given your agency policy, not given this. What would be the best or the right answer? And sometimes the right answer is not the best answer. Right? That's also a little bit of a trick. I think the key here is, I'm probably over 4 minutes, but the key here is to really do a good, thorough assessment of yourself. And really figure out what your issue is. And that's really what the piece in the packet is about. Because if you don't do a good kind of assessment of what trouble you're having, and you just keep studying the way that you've been studying, or using the same techniques, you're going to have the same outcome. So probably the amount of time that I spend with people is trying to figure out, what's the issue? If it's anxiety, how can we get past that? If it's content, there's a lot of strategies that we're given, lots more. Or if it's problem solving, and those are the areas that you need to focus in on. But it's really encouraging to see so many people here, and I too will be a resource if anybody needs any help.